MLS has just gotten their biggest player ever. Yes, we are talking about Teemu Pukki. The Norwich City legend has just moved to... I'm kidding. Yes, we are talking about the one and only Lionel Messi. Messi moved to Inter Miami and has already taken the United States by storm. He's already scoring goals and breaking gate records, but the question remains, what will really be his impact? Can Messi's arrival infuse that much needed credibility into MLS and increase the popularity of a league that's always been considered a retirement home for legends of football? Can he change the perception of MLS? Well, let's take a look at what Lionel Messi could mean to football in the United States. Consider subscribing to our channel. It's free and helps us a ton. Thanks. Before we dive into Messi's arrival and its impact on MLS, let's take a brief look at the history of the football in the United States, or soccer as they call it. Sports is an integral part of an American's life. Baseball, American football, or just football as they call it, basketball, hockey, etc. are all very popular in the US. In fact, sports is a multi-billion-dollar industry in all of North America. Despite this, soccer, the most popular sports in the world, has never been as popular in the US. From time to time, efforts have been put into making football a more popular sport in the US. However, throughout history, for one reason or another, these attempts ended in resounding failures. For example, in the 1920s and 30s, the first golden age of soccer ended when American Soccer League collapsed, partly due to the various clubs feuding over scheduling of National Challenge Cup and partly due to the Great Depression. Post-World War, another attempt was made when in 1968, National American Soccer League was born out of a combination of FIFA-sanctioned United Soccer Association and the unsanctioned National Professional League. NASL seemed like a step in the right direction. At the height of its popularity, they were able to sign huge players like Pelé and Franz Beckenbauer, even though they were at the end of their playing careers. Despite being past their prime, Pelé was considered the best striker and Beckenbauer the best defender in the world at the time. Their team, New York Cosmos, were averaging 40,000 fans a game, and their 1978 championship victory was sold out as 73,000 plus packed the Giants stadium. But it did not last. Trying to expand too fast while many owners of the team did not understand soccer affected them adversely, and the new franchisee owners went out as fast as they came in, leading to the collapse of the NASL. NASL eventually ceased operations by 1984. For a period of time, the US had no top division soccer league, and most of the US soccer stars moved abroad to play club football. In 1988, FIFA awarded the 1994 World Cup to the US, and in exchange, US Soccer Federation promised to establish a Division I professional soccer league. In 1993, USSF selected Major League Professional Soccer as the Division I professional soccer league in the US. It eventually transformed into Major League Soccer and held the first season in 1996 with 10 teams. They tried to Americanize soccer, like shootouts for drawn games or running the clock backwards and ending a half or a match when the clock hit 0, but their tendencies declined. In the first 5 years of its existence, MLS lost $250 million that grew to a $350 million loss by 2004. It seemed that MLS was also destined for failure. But positive changes not only made MLS profitable but also helped its expansion. The 2002 FIFA World Cup, in which the United States reached the quarterfinals, helped with a resurgence in soccer and MLS. American players were now more sought after, and homegrown players went to big European leagues. Tim Howard transferred to Manchester United for $4 million, one of the most lucrative deals signed at the time. Similar big changes like arrival of designated player rules allowed big marquee players to be signed. Today, MLS has expanded to 29 teams, 26 from the United States and 3 from Canada, and is now a profit-making entity. MLS is still behind leagues like NFL, MLB and NBA in terms of popularity and revenue, but it has certainly grown massively. Now, before we get to Messi, we have to acknowledge that he isn't the first big football star to take the US by storm. For years, the US has attracted big-name players from various European and South American leagues. As we talked about earlier, Pelé played for New York Cosmos from 1975 to 1977 when NASL was still a thing, and during this period, the league saw their popularity soar. More European and South American players joined during this period and saw the attendances rise. Players like Franz Beckenbauer, George Best, Gerd Müller and Johan Cruyff plied their trade at different clubs in NASL. A playoff game between the Cosmos and the Fort Lauderdale Strikers in 1977 drew a crowd of 77,691, a record for American club soccer. By any measure, even a waning Pelé was one of the biggest football stars of all time. Pelé's retirement in 1977 really hurt NASL as there was no soccer player of his star power who could fill that gap. After NASL's collapse, soccer took a backseat, and despite hosting the 1994 World Cup and formation of MLS, it looked like soccer will not find any proper support in the US. MLS was on the brink of collapse at one point. 2002 World Cup surprise run by the US men's team did breathe new life in MLS, but it still didn't have the financial might of European football or the American sports leagues like NFL or MLB. This all changed in 2006 when LA Galaxy practically did a coup. They landed David Beckham. This was the first signing that really shifted the perception of MLS. David Beckham's signing with LA Galaxy is its own story, and we would love to tell it in more detail. But for the sake of this one, it suffices to say that Beckham's arrival helped a ton in changing MLS's financial status. Beckham wasn't just a great footballer, but he was also a pop culture icon, had won multiple league and European trophies with major clubs, and came from one of the greatest clubs in the world, Real Madrid. His impact was almost immediate. It's undeniable that Beckham brought about a sharp increase in MLS's popularity, whereas serious football fans had previously dismissed it as a second-class league. MLS was a fledgling league, so the endorsement of one of the most popular players of the current era gave it a credence that simply wasn't there before. This also meant an influx of big-name players over the years. Thierry Henry, Kaká, Andrea Pirlo, Didier Drogba, David Villa, Frank Lampard, Wayne Rooney, Gareth Bale, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, etc. are just some of the big names that have played in the MLS since. The average salary jumped from around $140,000 to $530,000, an increase of almost 300%. Facilities have improved. The annual TV deal has increased manifold from $8 million per year with ESPN in 2007 to reportedly $250 million per year deal with Apple TV. Attendances average over 20,000 spectators per match. The TV audiences have increased to almost over 2 million viewers per game. It is truly becoming a league to follow. Now, you may ask, well, seems like MLS has already turned a corner and has become a profitable league with an ardent following. Does the league really need Messi? And it's a valid question to some extent. If anything, David Beckham has done more for MLS than anybody else so far. And so what can Messi really do that players who came before him couldn't? Well, that is the question we attempt to answer. Now it is safe to assume that we all know Messi. You all know Messi. If you're a football fan, there's no way you have not heard of Messi. But by chance, if you haven't or you were living under a rock, we have a 4-part series covering Messi's entire career. So do take a look. For the uninitiated, Messi is the biggest name in football. His accomplishments speak for himself. He's won everything there is to win, and he has done everything there is to do in the world of football. He's won leagues, European trophies, and very recently, the World Cup. Considered by many the greatest footballer of all time, Messi's influence not just on football but on the world is undeniable. So now think about it. MLS has just signed the most influential player of the modern era. For years, despite signing some of the biggest stars of football, MLS has had a reputation of signing players who were past their prime. Every player that we have named before came after they had accomplished everything and were towards the end of the road as a player. There's a reason a lot of people refer to MLS as a retirement home for legends. You go to MLS because there's nothing else for you to do, and that's why, despite MLS's increasing popularity, it's still not considered amongst the elite leagues of the world. You would argue that isn't Messi's recruitment kind of the same? It certainly looks that way, doesn't it? After all, just like every player who had come before him, he has already done everything there is to do in football, right? He is 36, and even if he continues to play for a little while, it's apparent that he is nearing the end of what has been an illustrious career. Then how can his signing be that significant? How can he be considered that important? Well, the simple answer is, it's Lionel freaking Messi. Even at his age, even at this stage of his career, he is better than 99% of all the players in the world in our opinion. Just by looking at how Messi was signed to MLS, you can see how important he is. But let's take a deeper look into how he came to MLS, shall we? Earlier this year, as Messi's contract with PSG was about to expire, it was widely assumed that Barcelona were the frontrunners in signing him. After all, that is his childhood club. That's the club he's played all his football for. PSG and Paris didn't seem to love Messi as much as everyone else. In fact, people in Paris were calling for his departure as far back as last year, and Barcelona was always his home. Xavi, a Barcelona great in his own right and their current manager, indicated every time he was asked that he wanted Messi. Every time Messi's name would come up, it seemed he was going back to Barcelona. Messi himself said so. In an interview with Sport and Mundo Deportivo, Messi said, "I had offers from another European team, but I didn't even consider it because my idea in Europe was only to return to Barcelona." But we all know what Barcelona is like today. According to The Athletic, it was indicated it would be very difficult to complete a deal for Messi. Barcelona could not, as it stood, offer Messi guarantees that he would be registered with the club. Barcelona's struggles with La Liga rules meant Messi could not return. Barcelona's financial struggles are a whole other can of worms that will require its own detailed video. But for now, it suffices to say that Barcelona's struggle with La Liga rules meant Messi could not return. He wasn't going to wait for assurances from Barcelona. Messi in that same interview said, after winning the World Cup and not being able to join Barcelona, it was time to go to MLS and live football from another perspective, enjoying more my daily life. Obviously, I'll have the same responsibility on my job and desire to win everything and doing things right, but being more calm. He also said, I had a lot of hope that I'd be able to come back to Barcelona, but after living what I lived through and the exit that I had from Barcelona, I didn't want to come back to be in the same situation, to wait and see what was going to happen or leave my future in the hands of another person. So, a Barcelona return did not happen, but the path to MLS wasn't still clear. By now, everybody knows who else wanted Messi. Yes, Saudi. According to Cope journalist Lina Condis, the deal presented to Messi included a 3-year contract in which he would earn 500 million euros per season. She tweeted, Al Hilal made one last offensive for Messi at the last minute. From Saudi Arabia, they would have offered him 1.5 billion euros for 3 years, 500 million per season. Messi was already the brand ambassador of Saudi tourism. The dream of another Messi vs Ronaldo rivalry on the shores of Saudi looked very much a possibility at the time. In a situation like this, few believed that of all teams, Miami will have a chance. He not only just won the World Cup, but he also won the Golden Ball. Despite the fans at PSG not liking Messi very much, he still scored 20 and assisted 20 goals the previous season. Even at his age, he was still very much the best player on the planet. But something else was at play. Someone else was working tirelessly behind the scenes at Inter Miami. In September 2019, David Beckham and his Inter Miami partners, the Mas brothers, embarked on an ambitious operation to acquire Messi. They talked to his father, Jorge Messi, and laid out a plan of what playing in MLS in general and Miami in particular would be like. They knew they were not going to get him that day itself, but it set in motion a plan that would culminate in Messi signing 4 years later. Miami suited Messi's lifestyle and preferences and potential impact on soccer in the United States. The plan to sign Messi was one of the most ambitious ever. They worked tirelessly behind the scene while speculations about Messi's future were rife. Eventually, once Messi announced he was going to Miami, it all fell together. According to Sportico, Messi's 2.5-year deal with Inter Miami is, quote, worth up to $150 million total from his salary, signing bonus, and equity in the team. It was also confirmed to ESPN that the option for part ownership of Inter Miami will not be subsidized as it was in 2007 for David Beckham, who could purchase an MLS team for a discounted price of $25 million. But that was not all. In addition, revenue sharing agreements with Adidas, Apple, and others were also being negotiated. This contract underlined what Messi could mean to soccer in the US. The impact of Messi's arrival can already be seen. At the time of the making of this video, Messi has scored 9 and assisted 1 goal in 6 appearances. But that's not even the most important part of his impact. According to the Apple CEO, Tim Cook, the introduction of Messi to MLS has already helped the company beat its targets in terms of subscribers. Cook told analysts, "We are excited about our MLS partnership and we are thrilled to see Messi suiting up with Inter Miami. It's clearly in the early days, but we are beating our expectation in terms of subscribers, and the fact that Messi went to Inter Miami helped us out there a bit. And so we are very excited about it." Inter Miami co-owner George Mas tweeted, "The Messi effect is real. Subscribers to MLS Season Pass on Apple TV have more than doubled since Messi joined Inter Miami. Also, Spanish language viewership on MLS Season Pass on Apple TV has surpassed over 50% for Messi matches and continues to rise. How exciting for a truly global fan base!" Even before Messi's signing, just on the announcement that Messi has signed, ticket prices soared for Inter Miami games. Inter Miami gained 11 million Instagram followers since Messi's signing. Inter Miami is now the 4th most followed US sports team on Instagram, and they now have more Instagram followers than the other 28 MLS clubs combined. But his signing is not benefiting just Inter Miami. As Athletic reported, right now, just about everyone in American soccer is seeing the rewards of Messi's arrival. Most MLS teams hosting Miami are seeing significant upticks in game day revenue. Apple announced that 3 games the week of Messi's debut set records in viewership. Social media numbers are through the roof, both in Inter Miami's followers and in views on highlights like Messi's free kick goal in his debut against Cruz Azul, which has drawn hundreds of millions of eyeballs. Even the US Soccer Federation will benefit, as the organizers of the US Open Cup will get a 50% cut of the gate from FC Cincinnati's US Open Cup semi-final. Ahead of game against Atlanta United, Messi shared a link to MLS season pass on his Instagram story. It was another example of the value of his partnership with Apple. According to Sports Business Journal, the MLS season pass subscription numbers have increased from around 700,000 in early June to nearly 1 million in late July. The Chicago Fire is currently on pace to set a league record for most gross revenue driven by a single game. Prior to Messi's announcement on June 7th, the team had sold around 8,000 tickets for its midweek game against Inter Miami on October 4th. This sold 10,000 more in the 10 hours or so after Messi's announcement. Other teams like LAFC, who have bigger season ticket bases and smaller venues, aren't going to see the single game revenue increases, but look at the games as an advertisement for their teams, stadiums and atmosphere. Notably, the league's revenue share model, which was updated this year, requires teams to put 10% of all ticket revenue into a league pot through the first 30,000 tickets sold. Then 33% of all revenue above that, according to sources with knowledge of the agreement. So every team in MLS benefits from the Messi crowds. Apart from short-term impact on MLS's and its stakeholders' business, there are long-term benefit of Messi too. Among all the players who have come to MLS, Messi is by far the biggest name ever. This could very well increase interest in not only his matches, but in soccer as a whole in the US. For a sports crazy nation like the United States, it's not out of the realm of possibility for soccer to become what it has not been able to for years. A viable sport that can rival American football, baseball, and basketball. There's a distinct possibility that seeing a player of Messi's stature playing in the domestic league can spark youth interest in soccer, that more young ones take up the sport because of their idol. There's definitely talent in the US. Players like Christian Pulisic have been plying their trade at big European clubs. It will be an understatement to say Messi's influence is one of its kind, and MLS could be a huge beneficiary of it. But arrival of Messi in itself isn't be-all end-all for MLS. MLS must expand on its grassroots initiatives, keeping talented American players from leaving for bigger clubs. They must face more international competition even if they get blown out. They need to build local fan bases, capitalizing on the increased football fandom we have seen throughout the youth. With emergence of Saudi, there are more choices than ever for a player, and MLS will have to contend with that. Of course, it's very difficult to guess how Messi will shape soccer in America in his tenure. All we can do is speculate. But all of us will have to agree that in Messi, the US has just landed a golden ticket to solidify themselves as a premier destination for football or soccer or whatever they call it, and it's a chance they cannot miss out on. Thank you for watching. Like if you liked it, share if you find it worthy, and subscribe for more content like this. This is Salty Football.